Why are you against the state of Israel?
Well, the state of Israel, Zionism is the ideology behind that of the state of Israel. The reason for its creation? The state of Israel is a creation of a new type of a Judaism, a nationalism, a materialism. And as I explained, Judaism is one thing and one thing only: subservience to God, to accept God's rule, to serve Him, and not to try to create a state. In fact, this is maybe ironic, but in fact the Jewish law, since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago, expressly forbids the Jewish people of creating a state. We're not to have 1 inch of Jewish sovereignty, and for 2,000 years Jewish people, even though they went through trials and tribulations, the Inquisition, the Crusades, and many, many other types of suffering, they never bought a piece of land or tried to make a state. So, because we know it was clear, and to anybody today who is truly following the Torah knows that we are not to have even 1 inch of Jewish sovereignty, and that would be even in an uninhabited land. The fact that they created the state of Israel in a land that was inhabited by a people, by the Palestinian people, so now you are now transgressing a whole other part of the Torah that says that you're not allowed to kill, you're not allowed to steal, that one must be compassionate, one should emulate God, be compassionate. So in every facet, the state of Israel is contradictory to the Torah, flies in the face of what it means to be a Jew. And Jews around the world, mind you, whether it is in Jerusalem, whether it is in New York or here in London, where you have the more the religious the community, invariably you will find the more anti-Zionist, anti-state of Israel they are. We come from in New York. You won't, in Williamsburg, that's right across from Manhattan, there's not one Israeli flag. It's the most largest concentration of religious Jews. Here in Stamford Hills, you barely find the flag. Because why? Because the more the person is knowledgeable of his religion, he understands that it's unacceptable to have the state of Israel. It's unacceptable to subjugate, to oppress the Palestinian people. And in fact, I go around, usually I bring some papers with us, and we have, let's say, the traditional, a book called Traditional Torah Opposition to Zionism, where we have the documents, historic documents, and we show that, for instance, the chief rabbi of Palestine in 1947, a year before they created the state, pleaded with the United Nations, and he said, I'll just quote one line, "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine." This was by the chief rabbi of Palestine, and this is ongoing. You will find that from day one, since the state of Israel, from when they came up with this idea, they were opposed every step of the way by the religious community. We put out a book called "The Rabbis Speak Out," which shows a compilation of Jews from certainly throughout Europe and in the Middle East, and all the leading rabbis, whether they were from Hungary, whether they were from London, wherever it was, the leading rabbis of the world said this is unacceptable. We cannot have a state. Unfortunately, it came about, the state came about, and unfortunately for 60 years, there is over 60 years now, the state has been the root cause of an endless river of suffering and bloodshed, both the Palestinian people and the Jewish people. It has been the greatest factor of exacerbating anti-Semitism around the world, because people unfortunately confuse the two, Zionism with Judaism. And when they see what the actions of the state of Israel, they immediately, it creates a mistrust, a hate for the Jewish people, and it could cause anti-Semitism. To be anti-Zionist is not being anti-Semitic. Of course, the Zionists want to accuse everybody who opposes the state of Israel as being anti-Semitic. That is part of their ploy, to confuse it, to call it a Jewish state, to confuse the two, to make symbols, to use the symbols of the state of Israel. They have a star of David, and all Jewish symbols. So if you oppose them, they stamp you as being anti-Semitic. But that is not true. It's patently not true. Zionism is distinctly different than Judaism. Judaism is to serve God, and Jews and Muslims and Christians have been living together for hundreds of years in peace in Palestine and in Muslim countries and so forth. So it has nothing to do with a religious issue. It has to do with a movement that started around 100 odd years ago, a totally new movement, a political movement to create a state exclusive for the Jews who accept what they are, who accepts the state, and or whoever else they want to take in, who are even not Jewish, but they take in from all over the world just to support this state. And that is a flawed, selfish political movement. They clothe it in religion.
Yeah.
They give it a facade of religion to intimidate others. So again, it's our obligation to stand up and speak up against this and let the world know, educate people. To be anti-Zionist is not anti-Semitic, and that they should know to separate the two. God help, it's our obligation, and the Almighty is righteous, just, and we know that one day this state of Israel will have to end, because it's a direct rebellion against God in every facet what it's doing, in its mere existence. So it will end, but we pray to God it should end speedily and peacefully without any further suffering from the Palestinian people, the Jewish people, and the repercussions here, and whether it is in Hungary or other parts of the world where people spoke out against Zionism and they were right away vilified and suffered. So we stand up and plead to God that He should end it speedily and peacefully, this occupation of the state of Israel and the suffering from whoever suffers because of it. And we apologize profusely for the people who speak in our name, and let them. It pains us terribly. It pains us. Just flew in from New York. I can't tell you how many people we constantly, the rabbis, they contact us, and they're frustrated. They simply don't know how could they stop this constant attacks and intimidation what the Zionists are doing. Again, there is a great God, but we do what we can, and God will help. That we hope soon there will be a resolution of this.
And I was going to ask, what are you facing? Because obviously what you stand for is against...
Well, my colleagues, for instance, in the Holy Land, who are under the occupation, face attacks, brutal beatings by the Zionists. This is just a picture, one picture. You can look at us at nkusa.org, www.nkusa.org. Here you can see pictures of, and we have these thousands of pictures of Jews being brutally beaten in Palestine, in the occupied Palestine in Israel, simply because they stand up and demonstrate against them. Why do they demonstrate? Because it's a rebellion against God. But not only that, the Zionist state of Israel, they totally ignore all that is holy. So for instance, they dig up graves. Not only they attack Palestinian people, they dig up graves for archaeological purposes. If there's anything standing in the way of a road or a hotel, they'll dig up a graveyard. While, for instance, in Cairo, they made a ring road, a famous ring road, and it was through a Jewish cemetery, so out of respect for the cemetery, they built it on pillars, not to disturb the graves. In the state of Israel, it doesn't work like that. They have no respect whatsoever. Now they're trying to conscript all the Jewish men to go into the army, even though our people would rather die than support this rebellion against God. But so they brutally attack them, they beat them, and this is, you can see, these are the attacks on my Jewish brethren in Palestine. Again, this is an ongoing thing. It's unbelievable that the world have no idea of what is happening there. And mind you, it's not a small, like a little minority. You have here, let's say, for instance, this is in the front of the White House when Netanyahu came to visit President Obama. He see tens of thousands of Jews demonstrating against the state of Israel. And this is ongoing. This is in every part where you'll have a large religious Jewish community. Other places, Jews are intimidated. They're afraid of what will happen. That's why or else there will be hundreds of thousands more. This is in other parts of the world. This is in Manhattan, across from the Israeli embassy. And this is every few months you will find these demonstrations. You won't find it in the media because the media is intimidated. But it's there. The more the religious, the more we oppose this occupation. in Jerusalem, this is a small picture, but you can see at nkusa.org, you'll see bigger links. But these are tens and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Jews who stand up and demonstrate, because it's clearly not what it means to be a Jew. They simply have hijacked the name Judaism, they've hijacked our identity, and unfortunately they're using it as a weapon to oppress people. And unfortunately, the more there's bloodshed, the more they gain support, because then they it's like for them a win-win situation. The more the Jews suffer because of what they do, then they say you have to support us. So it's something which is it's a tragedy. We plead with the world to understand the difference, and we apologize for what the Zionists are doing in our name, and we hope and we pray to God for a speedy resolution, a peaceful end of the occupation, and that we can live together all in harmony as we've had for so many hundreds of years.
How did you hear about Jobbik? I mean, I know you're not involved in politics.
Right. Actually, my colleagues, we have colleagues all over. We have many of my colleagues actually also travel to Hungary, because we have our ancestors, my grandparents. My grandparents were killed in Auschwitz, but great-grandparents and others are buried there. And of course, the world gets. There's a lot of alternative media, and so the word got around, and we felt it's an obligation for us to go and stand up when we feel something an aggression of Zionism that's totally not right, something that is wrong here. And I may just mention that I am totally Hungarian. My father and mother both were from Hungary, born in Hungary. My father's generations from Hungary, so I'm Hungarian.